Owning your identity is not just about self-confidence, it's about survival. It's about standing your ground in a world that constantly tries to mold you into something else. I've walked into rooms where people couldn't pronounce my name, and I've seen the subtle smirks that come with assumptions about where I come from, how I should speak, what roles I should play, and how much space I'm allowed to take up. But let me tell you something, I didn't let any of that define me. I chose to define myself. When you're young, especially if you grow up in a culture with strong expectations, your identity often feels like it's being written for you. You're told what's right, what's normal, and what's acceptable. But here's the truth I wish someone had told me earlier. You are allowed to write your own story. In fact, you must write your own story because no one else can do it for you. There were moments in my life where I felt like I didn't belong anywhere, too Indian in the West, too westernized in India. My skin was too brown for some roles and too light for others. My accent was questioned, my culture was exoticized, and my name, Priyanka, felt like a challenge for people who didn't want to try. It took time, but I realized that these so-called flaws were actually my most powerful traits. They were mine, they were real, and they were beautiful. Owning your identity means refusing to dilute yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. It means embracing your heritage, your flaws, your strengths, and the things that make you different. Because those differences, that's where your magic lives. When I started out in the entertainment industry, there was this unspoken pressure to conform, to look a certain way, to sound a certain way, to behave in a way that made others comfortable. But comfort never created change, comfort never shook the system, and comfort certainly never made history. There's power in being exactly who you are. When I won Miss World at 18, I was still figuring myself out. I hadn't grown into my own voice yet, but that platform gave me a glimpse of what it means to be seen, and how easy it is for the world to try to define you once you are. The years that followed were full of lessons. I played roles that challenged me, I lived out of suitcases, I moved across continents, and I fell, more than once. But each time I came back to one truth. The only way to succeed and stay sane in the process is to be unapologetically, radically yourself. People often ask me, how did you break into Hollywood? How did you manage both Bollywood and Western media? And the answer is simple. I never gave up my identity. I didn't change my name. I didn't try to mimic someone else. I brought me into every room, the real me, the Indian girl with big dreams, a big voice, and a big heart. The girl who grew up watching Shah Rukh Khan movies and dancing at weddings, the one who still craves home, cooked food and calls her mother for advice before every big decision. That's who I am, and that's who I'll always be, no matter where I go. Identity is not just about race or nationality. It's about your values, your story, your scars, your victories. It's about remembering where you came from even as you chase where you want to go. It's about refusing to shrink so someone else can feel comfortable. Don't ever feel like you have to apologize for who you are. Your background, your journey, your perspective. Those are your assets. No one else has them. They're your edge. They're your truth. And here's the thing. When you finally own your identity, people notice. They respect it. Even if they don't understand it, they feel your authenticity. There's a confidence that comes with owning your story, a light that can't be faked. And in a world full of copies, your authenticity will make you unforgettable. So let them mispronounce your name, let them ask where you're really from, let them raise their eyebrows when you speak up. And then show them, through your actions, your presence, your excellence, that who you are is not just enough, it's exceptional. Your identity is not something to hide, blend in, or suppress. It's something to wear proudly, like armor. It's what will carry you through rooms where no one looks like you. It's what will remind you of your worth when you're the only one fighting for your voice to be heard. You weren't born to fit in. You weren't born to play small. You weren't born to shrink. You were born to shine, and your shine begins the moment you stop trying to be what they expect, and start being everything you truly are. So go out there, own your space, own your voice. Own your identity. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like that's too much, because you're just getting started. Ambition is not a dirty word. Somewhere along the way, especially for women, ambition started to sound like something we needed to soften, like we had to dress it up in humility just to make it acceptable. But let me be clear, there is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting more. More success, more recognition, more growth, more space at the table. In fact, if no one's offering you a seat, bring your own damn chair and sit anyway. That's what being unapologetically ambitious looks like. I've always been ambitious, even when I didn't have the vocabulary to define it. As a teenager, I told people I wanted to be a performer, a global icon, someone who could break barriers, and you know what I got in return. Smiles, polite nods, the kind people give when they think you're dreaming too big for your reality. But ambition doesn't ask for permission. It just demands effort, persistence, and belief, so I didn't ask. I acted, I worked, I fell, got up, and worked again. Being ambitious is not about arrogance. It's about hunger, the hunger to grow, to evolve, to leave a mark. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about knowing that you owe it to yourself not to settle for less than what you're capable of. The world will try to convince you to be humble to the point of invisibility. They'll tell you to be grateful for what you have even when you know you're meant for more. And while gratitude is important, it should never be used as a leash to keep you in place. People have called me a lot of things in my career: ambitious, aggressive, too driven, too confident. I've learned to embrace all of it, because I know that those words, when said with a negative tone, are often just code for "you're making me uncomfortable because you're not playing small." And to that I say, good, let them be uncomfortable. Growth always is. I didn't get where I am by staying silent, by waiting my turn, or by hoping someone would notice me. I got here by going after what I wanted, even when the odds were against me, even when people said, "You can't do both Bollywood and Hollywood," even when they said, "You'll never get leading roles in the West." I didn't listen to their limitations. I listened to my own inner fire, the one that said, "Why not me?" Ambition means being relentless. It means waking up every day and choosing to chase your goals, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when it feels like no one else sees your vision. It means not shrinking yourself just to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. It means saying yes to challenges that scare you and no to opportunities that don't align with your purpose, even if they come with big promises. That's hard, but that's necessary. You'll face resistance, especially if you're the first one in your family, in your community, in your circle to break a pattern. People might call you too much. They'll say you're being unrealistic. They might even try to guilt you. Why can't you just be happy with what you have? But here's the thing, being ambitious doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means you're self-aware enough to recognize your potential, and bold enough to chase it. And ambition isn't just about career or money or fame. It's about whatever sets your soul on fire. Maybe it's starting your own business, or writing your story, or changing your community, or being the best parent you can be while still not giving up on your dreams. Whatever it is, you don't need to apologize for wanting it. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone. One of the most powerful things you can do in life is to own your ambition out loud, not with arrogance, but with clarity. To walk into rooms with your head held high, knowing exactly what you bring to the table, to speak up about your ideas, to ask for what you deserve, to negotiate your worth, to advocate for your growth. Because no one else will do it for you, and if they call you bossy or demanding for doing it, let them. Those words only have power if you let them. Your ambition is not a threat, it is a gift. It's the fuel that drives change, not just for yourself, but for everyone watching you. When you lead with ambition, you give others permission to do the same. You become an example. You break ceilings, not just for yourself, but for those coming after you. So don't hide your ambition to make others comfortable. Don't dim your fire because the room can't handle your light. Shine anyway, lead anyway, build anyway. Be loud about your dreams. Be fierce in your pursuit of them. Be unapologetically ambitious, because you were never meant to live a life that's just fine. You are meant to live a life that's extraordinary, and ambition is the first step toward that. So go ahead, want more, chase more, be more, unapologetically. Rejection is not the end of the road. It may sting, it may bruise your ego, and yes, it may even break your heart for a while, but it is never the end. Rejection, if you let it, can be the most powerful fuel in your journey. And I say this not as a cliché, but as someone who has faced rejection more times than I can count, publicly, privately, and painfully, but every single one of those no's helped shape the woman I am today. People often look at success and think it happened overnight. They see the red carpets, the awards, the applause, but they don't see the rejections, the slammed doors, the unanswered calls, the auditions that went nowhere, the times I walked into a room full of people who had already decided I wasn't good enough before I even opened my mouth. Those moments, they hurt. Let's not pretend they don't, but over time I learned to stop seeing rejection as a verdict and start seeing it as information. Rejection is simply redirection. It's the world's way of saying, not this door, try the next one. Sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. Sometimes it teaches you something about your craft, your mindset, your timing. Sometimes it just builds resilience. But every time it forces you to make a choice. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. I remember one of the biggest rejections in my early career. I was dropped from a major project, not because of my talent, but because someone else fit the image better. They wanted someone taller, lighter skinned, more conventional. I was devastated. I cried. I questioned myself. I thought maybe I wasn't cut out for this. Maybe I should shrink myself, change something, conform a little more. But then I realize, if I change who I am to fit in, I'll spend my life performing offstage. I didn't want that. I wanted to succeed on my terms, so I turned that pain into purpose. I got better, sharper, tougher. I walked into the next audition with more fire, more focus, and eventually I got a role that changed everything. That's what rejection does if you let it. It sharpens your edges, it shows you what you're made of, it forces you to ask, how bad do I really want this? And if the answer is badly enough, then no rejection can truly stop you. Let's be honest, rejection hurts more when you've given your all to something, when you've poured your time, energy, and heart into a dream and someone tells you it's not enough. But here's the truth, their no doesn't define your worth. It doesn't define your talent, it doesn't define your future. It's just one person's opinion, one moment in time, and most of the time it has more to do with their vision than your ability. Rejection is not personal, even when it feels like it is. People make decisions based on their biases, their limitations, their preferences. Your job is not to fit their mold. Your job is to stay grounded in your truth and keep going. When I first went to Hollywood, I was told that I'd never be more than a side character, that my accent would hold me back, that I wasn't marketable enough. And yet, here I am, not because I proved them wrong, but because I proved myself right. You have to believe in your vision when no one else does. You have to hold on to that dream even when the world seems to push you away from it. Rejection doesn't mean you're not enough. It means you're being prepared for something greater. Something you may not see yet, but that's waiting for you if you keep showing up. And sometimes rejection is a gift. It protects you from the wrong paths. It saves you from settling. There were roles I desperately wanted that didn't happen. And thank God they didn't, because if I had gotten those, I wouldn't have been free when the right opportunities came along. Rejection clears the way for alignment. It trims the unnecessary. It makes space for what's meant for you. But you have to have the courage to stay in the game, to keep showing up even when it's hard, to silence that inner voice that says, maybe I'm not good enough. You are good enough. You're just being refined, not denied. Use every no as a stepping stone. Let it push you to be better, not bitter. And don't be afraid to talk about your rejections, share them, own them. The world needs more stories of struggle, of resilience, of bouncing back, because that's what inspires people, not perfection, but perseverance. I want you to know that the next time you hear no, it's not a dead end, it's a detour. Sometimes it's the universe clearing the road for your destiny. So take that rejection, feel it, learn from it, and then rise. with more power, with more hunger, with more clarity, because rejection is not your enemy, it's your fuel. There will be moments in your life when your heart beats faster, your palms sweat, and your voice trembles. Not because you're weak, but because what you're about to say matters. That shaking in your voice, that's not fear, it's courage trying to break through. And if you feel it, don't back down. Speak up. Say it anyway. Say it especially when it's hard, because silence, though it feels safe, rarely ever changes anything. But your voice, your truth, has the power to move mountains. I've learned that speaking up is not about volume. It's not about how loud you are or how many people are watching. It's about honesty. It's about conviction. It's about daring to express what others are afraid to say, and sometimes it's about being the first one to say something out loud, so others can finally find the strength to echo you. I wasn't always outspoken. I grew up in a culture where being polite, agreeable, and soft-spoken was often confused with being well-mannered. Girls were expected to smile, stay in line, and keep their opinions to themselves, especially if those opinions made people uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth begins, and I had to teach myself that silencing my truth to preserve someone else's comfort was not strength. It was submission. It took me years to undo that conditioning. And even today, speaking up doesn't always come easy, but I do it, because the cost of staying silent is far greater than the fear of being judged. The world needs your voice, not just when it's polished and practiced, but when it's raw, real, and trembling. Those are the moments that shape who you are. That's when your character is forged. Speaking up when it's hard is what separates the dreamers from the doers, the bystanders from the change makers. There have been countless times in my career when I've had to use my voice, even when I wasn't sure how it would be received. I've spoken up about equal pay, about diversity, about colorism in the entertainment industry, about how women are typecast, reduced, and underestimated, and every single time I felt that tremble, I felt that anxiety. I knew there would be backlash, but I did it anyway. Because if we keep waiting for the perfect moment, the moment when our voice is steady, when the room is safe, when we're sure everyone will agree, we'll wait forever and nothing will change. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to act in spite of it, so speak up when you see injustice, speak up when you hear someone being disrespected, speak up when you feel disrespected, speak up when your gut says something isn't right. Even if you're the only one, especially if you're the only one, because your silence can be interpreted as agreement, and you don't want to stand on the wrong side of truth. I know the fear that comes with using your voice. The fear of not being taken seriously, the fear of being labeled difficult or emotional or too much. But let me ask you something. How many times have those labels been used to silence powerful women? Too many, and how many more times will we let them work? That's up to us. Your voice doesn't have to sound like anyone else's. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours, authentic, honest, rooted in truth, whether you're standing up for yourself in a relationship, negotiating your worth in the workplace, or calling out injustice in your community. Your voice matters. You matter. There will be people who try to shut you down. People who call you dramatic, opinionated, or aggressive. Let them. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. You are not responsible for diluting your truth so others can remain at ease. You are responsible for honoring your voice, for speaking your mind, sharing your story, and advocating for your space in this world. And you don't always need a microphone or a stage to speak up. Sometimes it happens in a quiet meeting room where you finally say, "I disagree." Sometimes it's in a classroom where you raise your hand and challenge a perspective. Sometimes it's at the dinner table when you say, "That joke's not funny." And sometimes it's simply looking in the mirror and telling yourself, "I deserve better." Speaking up starts with knowing your value. When you know who you are, you stop asking for permission to be heard, you stop shrinking, you stop editing yourself to fit into spaces that weren't built with you in mind. You begin to take up space, not with arrogance, but with purpose. And yes, your voice may shake, you may get it wrong sometimes, you might stutter, fumble, or cry. That's okay. Speaking up isn't about being flawless, it's about being fearless, it's about showing up anyway. Again and again, until your voice becomes stronger, until your message becomes clearer, until your truth becomes impossible to ignore. So let the world hear you, let them know you are here, not just to exist quietly, but to live boldly. To speak clearly, to stand tall, and if your voice shake, let it shake, but speak anyway, because the world doesn't change when we whisper. It changes when we raise our voices, even when they tremble. Success is beautiful, it's empowering, it's validating, but do you know what makes it truly meaningful? When it's shared, when it becomes more than a personal trophy, when it becomes a bridge for others, a light for someone else's path, a hand pulling another person up. Real success doesn't happen in isolation, and it's not meant to be hoarded. It multiplies when it's shared. So many people think success is a race, that it's about being first, best, highest on the ladder. But what's the point of reaching the top if you're standing there alone, if the people who helped you along the way are nowhere in sight? If you had to cut others down to climb higher, that's not success, that's insecurity dressed in designer. When I look at my own journey, I can't pretend I got here alone. Yes, I worked hard. Yes, I pushed myself. But every step of the way, there were people who saw something in me. My family, my mentors, directors who took a chance on me, friends who kept me grounded. And then there were people I've never even met, women who paved the way long before me, whose courage and breakthroughs opened doors that I now walk through. That's why I believe in looking back even while moving forward. Because when you remember who helped you, you never forget to help others. And when you get to a place of influence, you use it. You share the stage, you bring someone else to the table, you speak their name in rooms where they aren't present. That's power, that's legacy. We've been taught to believe that success is a limited resource, that if someone else wins, it means there's less for you, but that's a lie rooted in fear. Success isn't pie. More for someone else doesn't mean less for you. In fact, when you lift others up, you create more opportunities. Not just for them, but for the world. You expand what's possible, and let's be honest, success that isn't shared gets lonely. You might have the awards, the money, the validation, but if you don't have people to celebrate with, to grow with, to inspire, it all starts to feel hollow. The most joyful moments of my life have been the ones where I got to celebrate wins with my team, my family, my fans, my community. It's in those moments that success becomes more than an achievement. It becomes connection. There's also a special kind of fulfillment that comes from seeing someone else thrive because you believed in them, mentored them, opened a door for them. Whether it's a younger colleague, a sibling, a friend, or someone you've never met who tells you your story inspired them to keep going, that is real impact. That's when your success starts to echo. I remember working on sets where I was the only woman in the lead. Early on, I didn't think much of it. I was just focused on proving myself. But as I grew, I realized the power of visibility. When one of us breaks through, it's not enough to say, I did it. We have to ask, who can I bring with me? That's why I make it a point to collaborate with women, to champion South Asian representation globally, to invest in stories and talents that have traditionally been overlooked. Because let me tell you, when you create space for others, you don't lose anything. You gain depth, you gain richness, you build something that's bigger than your own name, and that's a kind of success that can't be measured in charts or awards, and we need to normalize this mindset. We need to teach it, especially to the next generation. Let them grow up knowing that ambition is not a solo act, that power is not diminished by generosity, that real winners don't compete, they collaborate. Let them see success not as a ladder, but as a network of hands holding each other up. This doesn't mean you won't have your moments alone. There will be days when you have to fight battles that no one sees, carry dreams that no one understands. But even then, keep your heart open, keep your eyes open, because someone out there needs to hear your story, see your strength, feel your support. Don't just rise, elevate, don't just achieve, amplify. And when someone else wins, celebrate them loudly, authentically, because their success doesn't threaten yours. it reflects it. When you learn to be genuinely happy for others, it means you're secure in your own light. And when you share your light, it doesn't dim, it grows. Let's stop glamorizing the idea of doing it all alone. Let's start glamorizing kindness, mentorship, generosity, collaboration. Let's start telling the full story of success, the one that includes the teachers, the assistants, the interns, the teammates, the mothers, the friends, the fans. Because at the end of the day, success is not about standing above, it's about rising together. So when you make it, and you will, don't just ask, what did I achieve? Ask, who did I help along the way? That's the mark of true success. That's the kind of success worth having. And trust me, it feels 1,000 times better when you get to share it. You deserve to take up space, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, professionally, and spiritually. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged without apology or permission. This world will often try to shrink you, to fit you into boxes, to make you quieter, softer, more agreeable, more palatable. But none of that is your purpose. You weren't born to disappear into the background. You were born to show up in full color, with full voice and full force. It took me a long time to understand this truth. I spent years walking into rooms where I felt like I had to earn my right to be there. I was constantly aware of being too loud, too confident, too opinionated, too different, and so I would edit myself. I would smile politely when I wanted to speak up. I would nod even when I disagreed. I would shrink just a little to make everyone else more comfortable. But with every compromise of my voice, I lost a piece of myself, until one day I decided I was done asking for permission to exist fully. Taking up space is not arrogance, it's ownership. It's about recognizing that you have value and that your presence is not a disruption but an addition, and yes, it might ruffle feathers. Some people are not used to women who walk in with confidence, who don't second, guess their worth, who occupy their space unapologetically, but their discomfort is not your problem. Your life is not a rehearsal for someone else's comfort. This message is especially important for those of us who have been historically pushed to the margins. Women, people of color, immigrants, people from different cultures, communities, and backgrounds. We've been told in a million subtle and not so subtle ways that we're too much, too bold, too emotional, too different, too ambitious, but what they call too much is usually just power they don't know how to handle, and that's not your burden to carry. Taking up space means using your voice even when it shakes. It means dressing the way you want, not to blend in, but to stand out if you feel like it. It means asking for that raise, applying for that leadership role, pitching your ideas at the table, not waiting for someone else to validate your potential. It means walking into a room with your shoulders back and your head high, not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you finally understand that you're not less than anyone either. You are allowed to dream big and claim those dreams out loud. You are allowed to own your beauty, your brilliance, your boundaries, and your needs. You don't have to justify them. You don't have to prove yourself again and again to be worthy of space. You already are. But I know it's not always easy. The world has trained many of us to shrink. Sometimes the voices of doubt aren't external, but internal. That little voice that whispers, "Am I enough? Do I belong? What if they don't like me?" I've heard that voice too. But here's what I've learned. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's something you build step by step, choice by choice. Every time you speak up, every time you show up, every time you claim your worth, you strengthen that muscle. Eventually, it becomes your second nature. We also need to stop confusing humility with invisibility. You can be grounded and still be loud. You can be grateful and still expect more. You can be humble and still take up space. In fact, taking up space is one of the greatest acts of gratitude, because it honors the life you've been given. It says, "I know I belong here. I know I have something to contribute, and I'm going to make sure the world knows it too." And when you start living like that, something amazing happens. You give others permission to do the same. You inspire people. You empower them. You make space for others by claiming your own. You shift the atmosphere. You change what's possible. That's the kind of power that doesn't just elevate you. It elevates communities, industries, cultures. And that's why this matters, because taking up space isn't just a personal act. It's a political one, a revolutionary one, a healing one. So don't shrink, don't wait. Don't apologize for who you are and what you bring. Walk into every room like you belong there, because you do. Show up fully, speak clearly, laugh loudly, lead boldly, dream wildly. Take up space not because you're trying to prove anything, but because your existence is proof that you were meant to. You are not here to fit in someone else's version of who you should be. You are here to live out your own story in your own voice on your own terms. So take up space in every way that matters and never forget you deserve to. Always have, always will.